Hey lovelies, it's Kate. Welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. It's spooky season and it is time for a spooky castle. Well, originally I wanted this to be very spooky, but I feel like it ended up not so spooky. It has some vampire vibes, the roofs are a bit witchy, so I feel like it is spooky, but it's not super dark or gloomy. It actually seems pretty scenic and dreamy on the exterior, but the interior is much darker, as you will see. It's still a perfect build for autumn in my opinion, and maybe you are into gameplay with vampires, or maybe you enjoy this type of architecture, and this build could be for you and your Sims. I built this in Windenburg. This is the 64 by 64 lot. I wanted to use the biggest lot size available because I wanted to use the terrain tools. My idea was to build this little castle on top of a hill so I could use the terrain tools. You all know I love this so much. And for this build, I could use the terrain tools a lot. At first, I just raised the terrain so I could build the house on top. And then later on, I'm going to work on the slope and all the water. So basically anything the terrain tools are needed for, including creating some tiny cute ponds. And I decided to basically have another level below, as you might have spotted in the beginning. This is also why I was running out of levels to build, because we can only build 4 levels, and I would have loved to add another one on top for the chimney, but I couldn't do that, so I simply used a platform. You can here see how I'm adding the platform. I raised it as much as possible, and then I'm just going to place some chimneys on top, and I wanted to have the other level below just so the build would look more complex. Later on, I'm going to attach a water wheel from the cottage living debug in this area. It's animated and wonderful. I just wanted to have another level down there so it looks super cool. So essentially I just built a small room in the beginning, which is the level at the very bottom. I then build a floor piece on top, and on this floor piece I built the rest of the whole house. This is why the house at the top is not directly sitting on the terrain. If you look closely, you can see that there is a tiny gap between the terrain and the floor piece in the front, like the floor in front of the round section, for example. In this case, you have to use stairs to connect the floor piece with the terrain so the Sims can step on this. So I did that in case you ever download a build from the gallery, no matter if it's from me or by anyone else. If you notice that stairs are missing, you just have to place them yourself, because the game is still super glitchy sometimes, and I've noticed that sometimes stairs are removed when a build is placed. I think even if you would not use move objects, if you just build a really simple house without any cheats, it might still happen. This game does not like stairs for whatever reason. It's just getting rid of all the stairs, and it's sometimes very exhausting. Here I'm finally manipulating the terrain. I moved the house a bit to the back so I had more space in the front, and you can see how I'm laying out the shape of the slope. So I wanted the shape to be perfect, just a nice curve, and then I started to smooth it out. Usually I use the flattened terrain brush so I can lay out the shape, and then I'm just using the smooth terrain brush, which is the most important brush for something like this in my eyes, and I later went back to the slope and made it perfect. And as soon as I've laid out the shape and as soon as it's smoothed out and looks pretty good, I like to go in with the regular brush for raising and lowering terrain in a very small size to really look for like some not too perfect areas at the edges. And I sometimes go in over and over again when it comes to terrain because I want this to look perfect. But generally, as I always say, it is really easy. It's just a bit of practice, but I feel like the terrain tools aren't too bad in The Sims 4. It is easy once you've just tried it a couple of times. And I also got a tutorial for this if you want to learn the basics about terrain manipulation. And I wanted to have a small pond on the left side, And originally I wanted to have like some type of river flowing under the house, and I then wanted to connect it to the small pond on the right side, but the layout ended up a bit different eventually. I've mainly used windows and doors from cottage living and Get Together. Recently I've really been into these more rustic builds. Maybe it's because it's autumn and I'm into spooky season a lot, but I have just really enjoyed working on these builds, and this is actually like the third attempt for this build. I started the first one, like the first version of this, I think in Willow Creek, and I just tried to build something and I ended up with this house, like this shape. And I really liked it, but I felt like it did not fit into Willow Creek, and I also did not like the shape, like it wasn't perfect. I then started over in Windenburg because Windenburg is just the perfect world for this type of architecture, and I then built on a smaller lot in Windenburg. Again, I recorded it and I just changed the shell, the general shape up a bit. I was really happy, but then I looked at it and I thought, okay, the shape is cool, this is a cool build, but it looks boring, it needs some terrain. So I then decided to start over, and this is what you can see here, and I built the whole thing again in Windenburg on the 64 by 64 lot because I wanted to have this amazing slope, a bit of water, so it looks interesting. But the first two attempts were just the shell, so I had just worked on the shell, which was pretty quick. I had not like decorated it or anything really, so it wasn't bad. But sometimes you just have to make some changes so a build looks good, because I feel like the shape itself is relatively simple. It looks cool, like I feel like it looks balanced in a way. It's hard to describe, but sometimes you look at a build and the shape just makes sense, and I enjoyed this build even though it's relatively simple, but I just needed some terrain and trees and everything. These trees that I'm placing here are from the werewolves pack. They are my favorite trees, or one of my favorite trees in the game. They look amazing, and I've used lots of debug rocks because I just wanted to have a lovely landscape. And here I'm once again manipulating the terrain because I wanted to just change the water a bit, and I'm just going to manipulate the terrain over and over again really because I really wanted this to be perfect. I then used this debug object from Discover University. It's just a fence piece, and I've placed it on this waste section of terrain because I wanted to have a nice wall so it does not look too natural. So we have some really natural areas where we have some debug rocks, but I wanted to build like a castle wall around the water just to make it look fancy. I found this object from, I think, the werewolves pack or Eco Lifestyle, I'm not sure anymore, and I've just placed so many debug objects in there to create a nice wall, including a column from the base game, and I've used the terrain paint at the top to make it look like concrete, and I've then used more and more debug rocks all around the build. I don't remember from which pack these are, maybe Cottage Living, but it doesn't really matter. You just have to take a look at debug or live edit, and you have to take a look at other debug rocks and see what matches your build. They come in so many different colors and textures, and here I just wanted to have a nice, happy, bright color. And as I said, I really steered away from the whole spooky idea pretty fast. To hide some of the terrain, I used a flat base game bush. I'm just holding down shift so it duplicates itself, and I'm just placing a lot of them. It was really important to me to keep the whole sloped area very simple because I feel like it's so eye-catching, and as soon as you add too much to this, you don't really see the shape anymore, and it's kind of too much. The shape, I really wanted this beautiful shape to stand out, so I only added the base game bush around it. I placed terrain in the center. There's a bit of green on the sides, so the brush size was just perfect, so I only have terrain paint in the center. This beautiful pastel purple plant is from high school years. It can be found in debug, and I've placed it all around the castle, and then I've used the base game lavender in some areas to just decorate it a bit more, and this is kind of the very slight pastel pop of color here. I just generally wanted to keep the landscaping simple so the castle and the slope would stand out, and I felt like this high school years flower plant is just perfect for this. I've then used more and more debug rocks on the exterior just so the back looks good as well, basically. And I've used so many of these base game bushes, and I've just placed just so many of them. I just don't like the terrain color, and it can't be changed when the terrain is too steep. So I just like to use lots of plants and flowers and rocks to really hide this, and that's exactly what I did. I've then used some regular base game rocks to decorate this area a bit. So the garden is really simple. It's more of a patio, and there's going to be a barbecue grill and different things. And you can here see I'm placing more trees. I like to duplicate objects using the true mod, because you can't duplicate a debug object the regular way. So instead of just going back into debug and looking for it, I like to just duplicate it and move it into place. But this just makes the process quicker. You don't need the true mod if you want to do this. It just makes you lazy when you use it sometimes. It's the best thing ever, and then you just get so used to it and you just duplicate a debug tree instead of going back. If you use the Better Build By mod, I think you can duplicate objects, but I'm not using organized debug, so I'm not sure. I'm using Better Build By but not organized debug because I'm just so used to finding what I'm looking for, and as soon as I've used it, I was confused. It's such a great mod, and I know a lot of people love it, but I felt like I just didn't want to change the way I'm used to finding objects. But it's pretty great, and I can totally recommend it in general. Like anything Twisted Maxi does is amazing. Yeah, but as always, the disclaimer, this build is unmodded and CC free in the gallery. Doesn't matter that I've moved some stuff around using Tool to make the process quicker, because even if Tool is used in a build, it's still CC free and unmodded in the gallery, so you can just go and grab it. And yeah, I'm finally furnishing. So I wanted the exterior to look very spooky initially, then it didn't look too spooky, but it's still a really beautiful autumnal castle. So I just wanted to match the interior to my original expectations at least. So the interior is a bit more gloomy and spooky, and I've used lots of objects from different packs, mainly the vampires pack, the paranormal pack, decor to the max, also cottage living, and I love this color combination. This rug from Cottage Living looks so happy and bright, and it kind of brightens the whole room up a bit, which I really like, but it's still spooky and gloomy. And I just love this desk so much. I think it's from the Paranormal Stuff pack, and I just wanted to have this very open big living room. I wanted to include different areas to just sit and hang out. I also wanted to have a piano. I've placed the piano strategically on the corner of the rug because it just looks so weird when a rug is just like ending somewhere randomly and then right next to it you have another rug. I just felt like it looked weird, so I just strategically placed the piano there, and it just kind of ties the whole room together. So the piano connects the two different areas, and it also makes the two rugs look good together. And I've also placed some bookshelves and of course a big fireplace, because that's what you just need any build like this, so it's cozy and warm. I've used this rug from Snowy Escape because I just wanted to have a fake fur in front of the fireplace. I've then just placed more sofas and objects, but I also wanted to make sure that there is a chess table in this room, an easel, a bookshelf, the piano, just different things, and also a desk including the computers. So your Sims will be able to work on their skills in this room. It's like a combination of a living room and an office. So the build really includes everything you might need. And this is the bathroom. So this house has 3 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Each bedroom has its own bathroom, but then we have one additional bathroom down there, like at the bottom, right next to the kitchen living room area, so the Sims don't have to walk up the stairs constantly in case they want to visit the bathroom. But there are definitely enough bathrooms in this house. And this is the kitchen, which is super dark and gloomy. I've used a wallpaper from high school years. I think it's completely black, but it like has different textures. Like there are tiles at the bottom, then it looks like a regular wallpaper above, and it looks still very complex even though it only has one color. And I wanted to use the cabinets and counters from Vampires in this amazing green swatch, which is just so beautiful. I generally love these counters and cabinets. And then I've used a floor from high school years, also in a dark swatch. I had used the same one in the bathroom in a lighter swatch, and I just tried to clutter a bit. I've used different objects, for example, from the Paranormal Stuff pack, these amazing paintings, for example, also a couple of plants, and then this very autumnal looking object on the counter. I forgot the name, like I forgot the word. I think it's in the logo of Fruit of the Loom, and it has such a weird name, like a cool name, but I always forget. And I also wanted to include a table like for having breakfast, like a typical breakfast corner, breakfast nook. And then I've also added a big dining table, so your Sims can really entertain some guests there or just grab a quick meal. And when I play tested this, the stove started to burn. Like, I'm going to change the stove later on. I included the base game one, which looks super rustic because I forgot to add an oven initially. And when I let the Sim prepare a turkey, the whole kitchen burned down. So playtesting is fun sometimes. And like, I don't know if this is what situation lag is that people always talk about, but my Sim wouldn't do anything. Like, I sometimes encountered this. I'm telling a Sim to go somewhere and the Sim is not moving at all. I then usually use MC Command Center to reset the Sim, and then the Sim is doing what I want the Sim to do. But in this case, I couldn't use MC Command Center, like I couldn't press shift or anything because it was burning, but the Sim wasn't moving, and the Sim standing next to him also didn't do anything. So everything was just kind of burning, but I couldn't do anything, and eventually I had to exit to the main menu because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't tell him to stop the fire. I couldn't do anything. So yeah, fun. And yeah, here I'm finishing one of the bedrooms, and there's a tower right next to the bedroom, as you can see here, and I connected the two rooms with a door, and I had no idea that this is possible. Like, I placed a door on the inside, like in the tower, and then on the other wall in the bedroom, and the Sim is actually accessing the tower. I've used another door though at the very top, at the very bottom, and I raised it using tool just for decorative purposes because the wall of the tower was kind of glitching into the door and it wasn't looking perfect. So I changed this later on, but this is functional. I was like so scared because I could not really change the layout because it would have changed the exterior so much, and I had really set my heart on this layout, and I then thought, okay, there's just a random empty tower. I sometimes leave a tower like this or a dormer completely empty when it's just part of the roof, for example. I think that this is fine. But here in this case, it was just an empty room right next to a bedroom, really prominent. You could really tell that there's just an empty room, which isn't good. It's not looking good. So I was really relieved when I could just fix it this way, and I just turned it into a small room for reading. And yeah, this here is another bedroom. It's cute, it's pink, and it's for 2 kids. And I just placed a couple of toys. I still try to make it look rustic, even though it's a kid's room. This is always difficult for me. Like, I always want to build modern kids' rooms. It's so hard for me, but I feel like now that we have the bed from high school years, it's much easier to make a rustic bedroom like this. I never really liked the base game ones. And this is it. You can here see lots of screenshots. This build is fully furnished. It is CC free and unmodded. It's available in the gallery. My ID is KateEmerald, and you can also grab the tray files from my Patreon. And speaking of which, it's time to thank my wonderful Emerald Patreons and my Emerald YouTube members. A big thank you to Mehmet Ali Baris Khan, Asia, Charlotte, Emma Barnes, Lady Sims, Katie Y, Labless, Lisa Martin, Leah Cross, Saturated Spark, Shannon McClam, Stephen, and Helena Lynn. Thank you so much for your gigantic support. A big thank you to all my other Patreons and YouTube members. And of course, a big thank you to anyone who's watching this. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of your support so much. I hope you will have an absolutely perfect day and week. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye!